Over 60? Discover the 4 shocking fruits to avoid and the 4 incredible fruits to eat for transformation. Mary's heart raced as she read the headline that seemed to leap off the page. She found herself absorbed in a world she had momentarily forgotten, a world where knowledge could be transformed into power. At 62, she felt more like a shadow than the vibrant matriarch she'd vowed to be. Her garden, once alive with laughter and stories, now stood still, echoing her loneliness. As her children settled into lives scattered across the country, Mary poured her energy into her plants, nurturing them with love. But as her hands touched the soil, a familiar ache tugged at her heart. The vibrant greens reminded her of the busyness and warmth that used to fill her home. Now, it felt like time had stolen the joy, leaving behind the dust of forgotten memories and faded photographs. She hesitated, questioning whether reading about nutrition could spark anything beyond transient curiosity. Was it too late to venture into something new? The articles piled up, and with every paragraph she uncovered about the dangers lurking in certain fruits, the uncertainty in her mind twisted tighter. What if she had unknowingly consumed harmful foods all these years? The thought unsettled her, igniting a determination she hadn't felt in ages. It was a wild idea, yet it was exhilarating. Maybe delving deeper into nutrition could light a fire within her that hadn't flickered for years. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days blurred into nights as Mary documented her findings with a hidden camera. She transformed mundane kitchen moments into vibrant snippets, courage rimming her voice as she spoke to an audience that felt both fantastic and terrifying. With every click of publish, her nerves danced with anxiety. Would she be seen as the grandmother reinventing herself, or merely an oddity online? What did it mean to be visible in a world that felt so foreign now? Yet, the comments poured in, young voices appreciating her insights. And in that whirlwind of attention, her grandson Jake returned home, buzzing with excitement to help her extend her reach. But shadows curled around her newfound energy. Recognition dangled like a double-edged sword. Each smile felt brilliant, yet tainted by an underlying fear that she was departing from the warm, nurturing grandmother her family had always known. She grappled with a haunting question. Was she becoming something different altogether? Then, shuffling through her attic, she stumbled across an ancient cookbook, rich with family history. The faded pages rustled secrets of old family meals and mingled memories. A trembling hand halted on an extraordinary recipe, one that blended potent fruits with flavors echoing her upbringing. A plan emerged like the first bloom of spring. She would gather her family for a garden feast, a celebration of roots and renewal. Invitations slipped from her grasp as hesitation gripped her heart. What if they turned away, indifferent to the traditions she fought to revive? With every text sent, anxiety coiled tighter around her chest like brittle vines, pulling her into a quiet storm. She was not just reimagining her life, she was tangling with the ghosts of familial bonds. Amidst the preparations, she breathed in the possibilities, feeling both hope and despair. Each day sang of potential, yet fear lingered, whispering doubts into her ear. What if the doorbell rang, and her family never came? As she reached for her apron, she heard the chime echoing through the house, ringing the question that hung in the air. Would it be family or emptiness that greeted her? Mary's heart hammered in her chest as she moved cautiously to the door. The moment felt monumental, as if she were not just opening the door to her home, but into a new chapter of her life. She steadied her breath and gripped the handle, steeling herself for whatever or whoever awaited her on the other side. When she opened the door, her eyes met the faces of her daughter and Jake, beaming with enthusiasm. The surprise was electric. A part of her had feared they might not come, but their smiles chased away the shadows she had harbored. The warmth from their embrace grounded her, igniting flickers of excitement and determination. Perhaps this moment could redefine her image as a grandmother, a bridge between the cherished past and the bright future she longed to envision. The lively chatter soon filled her once quiet home. She felt the pulse of life within her walls again, perhaps more vibrantly than it had been in years. As they descended into the kitchen, Mary lit the oven and began to prepare the recipe that had sparked her desire to gather them all. Each chopped fruit and measured spice became a symbol of her resolve to merge the past with the present, to reclaim her role as the heart of the family. Yet, beneath her burgeoning confidence lay a tide of anxiety. She questioned the importance of this event. What if her quirky new interests, her transformation, alienated them? Would they embrace the woman she was becoming, or would they prefer the familiar traditionalist they had grown accustomed to? She looked at Jake, who had invested himself so wholeheartedly in this project without his own hesitation. Perhaps this was her moment to discover not just who she was, but who she could be, for both her and them. As they shared stories about family recipes, she found herself revealing parts of her journey, the doubts, the research, the laughter at the bloopers she had captured in her video logs. Their laughter surged around her, displacing her apprehensions like sunlight breaking through clouds. Each smile they shared was a reminder of shared history. Each ooh and ah as she presented her culinary project dissipated the tension knotting her stomach. Here, she was not merely the grandmother known for knitting or storytelling. She was an innovator, an educator, and above all, a conduit of family connection. The table was set, and Mary felt a surge of purpose. She had sprinkled the rich, vibrant colors of fruits across the plates, symbols of nourishment, health, and tales yet to be told. As they gathered around the table, her heart swelled with a recognition that the power of tradition could coexist with the thrill of progression. This could be a feast not only for the body, but also for the spirit. Mid-meal, just as the conversation flowed about their plans for summer vacations and shared hopes, a text buzzed on the kitchen counter. Jake picked it up, his expression shifting from joy to confusion. "It's from Aunt Claire," he said, glancing at Mary. "She says she might swing by, she wants to check in on you, and she's bringing the kids." Mary's heart sank. Claire had always been the gatekeeper of tradition in the family. What if her newfound journey was not met with open arms? Her grand feast, crafted from a space of ambition and growth, now stood threatened by familial divisions. Would Claire embrace the transformation, or would she oppose it, insisting they stick to the ways of the past? An impending confrontation loomed, raw and unwelcome. As the door creaked open once more, Mary understood that the moment had arrived to confront the very tensions she had kept at bay. The time to truly discover who she was and who her family could be together was here. Each pound of her heart echoed a single question. Would this gathering bind her family closer, or unravel the fabric of their shared history? As the door swung open, Mary's thoughts raced like wild horses. Aunt Claire stepped into the room with her children in tow, exuding an air of authority that made Mary's stomach churn. The contrast between the warm embrace she had shared moments ago and the chill that Claire brought with her was palpable. Anxiety coiled in her gut as Mary struggled to balance her excitement with the dread of impending judgment. "Mary, it's so good to see you," Claire proclaimed with a forced cheerfulness that rang hollow. The children rushed in, their youthful energy amplifying the tension. They darted toward the kitchen, their eyes wide with curiosity for the unfamiliar meal spread before them. As they approached the table, Mary took a deep breath, drawing strength from the vibrant colors of the fruits she had so lovingly arranged. She could feel Jake's reassuring presence behind her, but it didn't quell the battle waging within. "What do you think?" she asked the kids, attempting to steer the conversation toward positivity. One of them, her nephew Ben, picked up a piece of bright mango. "Can we just have the regular stuff like last time? You know, "Grandma Claire's cookies?" he asked, his innocent desire for tradition echoing in the room. Mary's heart sank. Was she prepared to hear criticism of her culinary efforts? She felt as though she was standing on a precipice, looking down into the abyss. "Actually, I thought we could try something a little different today," Mary replied, her voice wavering slightly. "These recipes are a healthy twist on what we usually make." Claire's expression tightened. "Healthy? Mary, you know how children are. They need comfort food. You shouldn't overthink it." Her tone was laced with condescension, and Mary bristled at the familiar overreach. Underneath Claire's words lay a fundamental misunderstanding of Mary's growth, a denial of her journey. The laughter that had filled the air dissipated, leaving a thick pall of discomfort. While Jake engaged the kids with an animated story about his latest adventure in video production, Mary found herself facing Claire, who was scrutinizing her like a hawk assessing its prey. "Are you sure you're ready for all this?" Claire asked, tilting her head. "You've always been so set in your ways." Mary's instinct was to recoil, but something deeper propelled her to confront the challenge. For years, Mary had stifled her ambitions, placing family above her own self-exploration. But this time, she was determined to stand her ground, to validate her transformation rather than diminish it. "I'm still me, Claire," she replied, the words steadying her courage. "But I'm also someone who wants to try new things, explore new perspectives. I can't just stick to what's comfortable because it's what we've always known." Claire's brow furrowed, as if she were processing a puzzle she had no pieces for. "And what about the kids? They need stability." The defensiveness in her voice stung, unraveling the thread of connection that had woven through most of their lives. Mary felt an urgency rising within her. This was not just about dinner. It was a reflection of her personal evolution, her need for acceptance and understanding. Stability can coexist with change. I want to share a piece of me with them, not just the past as we knew it. Maybe it's time we all explored what that means together. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Time stretched, offering a moment of introspection. Would Claire choose to bridge the gap or reinforce the wall? Would she engage with the new Mary or retreat to the familiar? The tension was thick, rising to a breaking point. Mary held her breath, ready for whatever would come next. But then Claire sighed, a sound of surrender and perhaps a trace of understanding. "Okay, let's see what you've created." As the conversation resumed, a small thread of hope entwined with uncertainty flourished within Mary. She was forging a new path, not just for herself, but for her family's future. Little did she know, beneath the surface of this seemingly simple meal, the journey of transformation was just beginning. The very act of sharing her new self would set off a cascade of revelations that could either knit their family closer or expose hidden tensions that had long been buried. As the meal continued, she caught a glimpse of something shifting. Would this acceptance be genuine, or would it mask an underlying resentment yet to be unveiled? The laughter around the table flickered like a candle threatened by the wind. For Mary, the moment felt surreal, a vague sense of victory mingling with the remnants of unease that hung in the air. As the kids burst into fits of laughter at Jake's animated antics, she stared at her plate, lost in thought. This encounter was pivotal, as she began to realize that reclaiming her identity meant more than just culinary choices. It was about unlearning the habits that stifled her. Mary glanced at Jake, who caught her eye and offered a warm smile. He seemed unperturbed by Claire's critique, fully engaged with the children who were, moreover, beginning to savor the refreshing flavors she had prepared. If only she could embrace this validation effortlessly. Instead, doubt lingered like a shadow at the edge of her confidence. But she had no time to dwell. With dinner behind her, she felt the weight of uncertainty settle over her, threatening to squash her newly budding sense of agency. It wasn't just about proving herself to Claire or winning over the kids. It was more profound. It matched the contours of her identity that had long been neglected. The strains of doubt echoed in her thoughts. Were her choices really valid, or simply a fleeting rebellion against the status quo? That night, while the house wrapped in silence, Mary found it impossible to drift to sleep. Each tick of the clock summoned the voices she had tried to silence, the familiar seeping into her thoughts. "You've always been just Mary," Claire's words replayed, an uninvited guest in her mind. Was she so far removed from that image, and was there really room for someone else within her? She needed to reaffirm her purpose. After years of nurturing everyone else's existence, was she now permitted to explore her own? Instead of shying away, she resolved to confront the lingering fears. Turning toward focus, she remained resolute, gathering the pieces of her aspirations like fragments of shattered glass, sharp but beautiful, needing time to polish and reshape. The next morning, armed with renewed determination, she awoke early. As the sun peeked through the curtains, she moved through her morning routine, her mind whirring with plans. Today was not merely about looking after the children or pleasing Claire. She needed to work on her passion for healthy cooking, a dream long sidelined by familial duties. She vowed to make it an integral part of her life, an echo of the woman she was reclaiming. "How can I engage them?" she pondered, imagining how she would present these new recipes. Perhaps a cooking session would spark their interest. With this thought, her heart began to race, a creative flame igniting within. Engaging the children wasn't just a way to keep them entertained, it could be transformative. Could they participate in a culinary adventure that would foster their curiosity and connection to the nourishing things? As she finalized her ideas, she also contemplated the impending encounter with Claire. It would undoubtedly reaffirm her resolve, centering on intentionally navigating the tricky waters of change and acceptance. This, more than anything, was something she must articulate. She had to stand firm in her newfound vision and reveal a side of herself that had been hiding in the shadows for too long. Determined, she arranged her notes, the clarity she needed coming to her like a beam of sunlight breaking dawn's grip. The driving force behind her evolution needed a voice, and today would be the day she intended to speak those words. When the kids arrived later, bubbling with excitement from their morning escapades, Mary felt ready. This was the moment to articulate not just her intentions, but the deeper significance behind them, a bond crafted through shared experiences and adventures in the kitchen. But as she gathered them around for a discussion, shadows flickered at the door. Aunt Claire had returned unexpectedly early. The air shimmered with tension once more. Would this be an opportunity for connection, or a catalyst to reignite the old patterns of misunderstanding? The question loomed, heavy with the promise of conflict and perhaps, ultimately, clarity. As Mary summoned her nerves and attempted to keep her composure, her heart raced at the sight of Claire stepping through the threshold. The casual atmosphere shifted, like a tightrope wavering under the tension of her unspoken words. How many times had the air felt this charged? The very texture of her resolve began to fray as she noticed Claire's expression, a mix of surprise and great curiosity. "Looks like you have something planned," Claire remarked, crossing her arms, a habitual stance of scrutiny that overwhelmed Mary with a sense of being small, vulnerable. The words threatened to dwindle the surge of empowerment driving her. Mary took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. "Yes, actually, I wanted to try something new with the kids," she replied, injecting a firmness into her voice that disguised the uncertainty lurking beneath. "We're going to explore healthy cooking together." "Healthy cooking? That sounds interesting," Claire answered, a hint of skepticism lacing her tone. "Do you really think kids will enjoy that? They prefer the quick and easy stuff." Mary sensed the walls closing in, a familiar unease creeping at the edges of her thoughts. Yet it ignited a fire within her, an urge to dismantle the doubts that had shadowed her imagination for too long. This wasn't merely about food. It was about empowering herself and the children, igniting interest and demonstrating that health and happiness could coexist. "Let's show them how to create something delicious that's good for them," Mary insisted, her words flowing with newfound conviction. The flicker of enthusiasm she had felt earlier blossomed. This was her moment. The children, with their boundless curiosity, were ready to learn. But Mary felt Claire's skepticism shaping an unexpected challenge. The children gathered close, drawn in by Mary's energy. She introduced the day's project, homemade fruit smoothies. "Who here has tried blending fruits?" she asked, beaming at the eager faces around her. The kids responded with a chorus of exuberant yells and shakes of their heads, eyes lit with intrigue. "Let's discover how simple fruits can be transformed into a thick, healthy drink. But first, we need to talk about the difference between fruits that are excellent for our health and those to avoid," Mary said, purposefully keeping her gaze steady on Claire. The tension remained, but Mary pressed on. "We can make it fun. A little challenge. Let's find the 4 fruits that help us feel our best." Encouraging the kids to participate fueled her courage even more. Each child unequivocally deemed her challenge exciting. Even Claire, arms still crossed, held her skeptical gaze but listened. As Mary led the children through the process, their laughter and curious questions filled the space. "Can we add honey?" one child piped up. "What about spinach?" asked another. Each inquiry enhanced her blossoming confidence. Maybe this was the right path. The power was shifting back toward her, and she was finally claiming the authority that had been absent for so long. Halfway through the activity, Claire approached, her stance slowly uncrossing as a shadow of intrigue crossed her features. "So, what are these incredible fruits?" she asked, trying to suppress the flicker of approval creeping into her expression. The question opened the floodgates of excited suggestions from the children, bouncing off one another in a frenzy of creativity. Mary could see Claire's expression soften as she observed the joy and connection forming, but a part of her still braced for the inevitable critique even as she clung to her clarity. Just as the first smoothie was ready to blend, a sudden crash from outside startled everyone. Mary's heart dropped. Had the moment shifted back into chaos? It felt almost symbolic, a collision between her budding self-assurance and the remnants of her old life, the familiar specter of doubt threatening to intrude with renewed force. With the now unsettled kids looking to her for reassurance, Mary was faced with a decision. Would she allow this incident to disrupt the newfound connection forming, or would she turn it into an opportunity to showcase resilience? The moment shimmered with the potential for transformation, both for her and for the relationship she endeavored to build with Claire. "Stay with me," Mary said, her voice steady, inviting all eyes back to her. "Let's turn this into a lesson on how we can adapt and enjoy the surprises life throws our way." But as she steadied those around her, she couldn't shake the feeling that this day was about to become a crucial turning point, one that might very well demand her to go deeper than she ever considered, into the depths of her own convictions and fears. What lay ahead? Would she dare to confront the chaos, or would uncertainty guide her spiraling back into the shadows? The moment stretched, heavy with anticipation. The kids, momentarily distracted by the crash, now turned their collective gaze back to Mary, a mixture of worry and excitement swirling in their young eyes. She could feel their energy shifting. The power of engagement hung in the balance, teetering on a thread of her response. Mary took a deep breath, her resolve coiling tight within her chest. "All right, let's use this as a reminder that sometimes life throws unexpected challenges our way," she began, pitching her voice slightly higher to carry a tone of inspiration. "Just like in cooking, it's all about creativity and how we choose to respond." The children nodded, their attention re-engaged. A fire ignited deep within Mary, and she took a step forward, allowing her own anxiety to melt into determination. "Now, let's finish that smoothie. Who's ready?" A chorus of cheers erupted, and for the first time, she felt a genuine ripple of excitement coursing through her veins. Could this suddenly chaotic day be the catalyst she needed? Was she truly prepared to seize the moment despite the uncertainty that loomed? As she blended the fruits, the loud whir resonated with the children's laughter. It became a rhythmic backdrop to her blossoming confidence. With each vibrant color introduced into the blender, strawberries, bananas, kale, the smooth concoction began to reflect the very hues of her ambition, intertwining with the innocence around her. Unexpectedly, she felt Claire move beside her. "You handled that really well," Claire remarked, her voice softer than before, an unfamiliar gentleness emerging from behind her usual critique. Mary glanced sideways, catching a fleeting glimpse of curiosity in Claire's eyes. "Thank you," Mary replied, surprised at her own steadiness, each word resonating with the strength she had uncovered during the activity. "It's about more than just healthy cooking. It's about teaching them how to deal with surprises." The words hung between them, a bridge constructed from empowerment. This wasn't merely a culinary lesson, it was a personal one. For so long, Mary had grappled with her own tendencies to retreat in moments of instability. This was a chance for transformation, not just for the kids, but for her own life trajectory as well. With the smoothie complete, she poured the vibrant mixture into small cups, handing them out to the eager children. Each sip was met with delighted exclamations, and in that moment, Mary felt a profound sense of connection blossom. They were sharing not just a drink, but an experience, one they could all learn from. "See," Mary said, raising her cup in a toast. "Good things can come from unexpected moments if we allow ourselves to adapt." As the children cheered and clinked their cups together, a wave of warmth surged through Mary. In that second, she realized that she was no longer just teaching the kids. She was reclaiming part of herself that had been buried under layers of self-doubt and fear. Yet amidst the joy, she noticed Claire's eyes pinpointed on her. There was something about her expression, less critical, more contemplative. Mary's pulse quickened as a realization dawned on her. Was Claire reconsidering her own perceptions? Could this be an opening? A chance to build a partnership rather than a battleground? But before she could dwell on the implications, Claire's next words caught her off guard. "You're onto something here, Mary. I might not have believed in your idea before, but it seems like you're making an impact." The flurry of feelings that washed over Mary, a mix of hope and apprehension, was palpable. Was this acknowledgement merely a momentary flicker or the beginning of something substantial? As the laughter of the children echoed around her, the uncertainty returned, lurking ominously, yet giving rise to a newfound sense of purpose. What did it really mean for her if Claire was open to change? She found herself teetering on the precipice of this moment, fearful yet exhilarated by the possibilities. With everything at stake, would she muster the courage to explore this burgeoning relationship with Claire, or would she retreat back into the shadows of doubt that had so often constrained her? Questions piled up like the colorful fruits in their cups, waiting for resolution. Mary could feel the pull of destiny. It was time to step up or step aside. The next chapter of her journey loomed ahead, glimmering with the promise of resolution, yet cloaked with uncertainty. Would she venture into that uncharted territory where vulnerability could transform into the strongest form of power? The laughter of the children faded into a gentle hum as Mary stood still, caught in the crosshairs of her conflicting thoughts. Claire's unexpected support had illuminated a path she hadn't dared to imagine. Yet the shadows of doubt still loomed large. Could she forge a relationship built on mutual recognition, or was she merely grasping at smoke? With resolve, she faced the kids, who were fully absorbed in their smoothies, their excited chatter filling the air. They had moved on from the earlier chaos, embodying the very lesson she intended to impart: adaptability. But could she harness that energy for herself? The realization struck her like a lightning bolt. Each interaction with the children was a reflection, a direct mirror of her own journey. If she could encourage their growth, what might that mean for her own evolution? "I'm going to take a step forward," Mary murmured to herself, the words forming a silent pledge. This could become more than just cooking classes. It could be a platform for her own self-discovery. A newfound confidence surged through her. Taking a small step toward Claire, she poised herself to navigate this fragile yet promising dynamic. "Claire," she began cautiously, the weight of vulnerability clinging to her words. "I really appreciated what you said earlier. It felt like you were seeing me for the first time." Claire raised her brow, curiosity piqued. "I meant what I said, Mary. It's refreshing to see you in control. But how does this change where we go from here?" The question hung in the air, heavy yet tantalizing. Mary's heart raced, not with fear, but with a thrilling pulse of prospect. This was her moment to mold the narrative she had always felt was directed by others. "I think we should collaborate more," Mary offered, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. "You've always had such a strong vision for these classes. What if we combine our strengths?" Claire studied her intently, and for a heartbeat, it felt as if the world had narrowed down to just the two of them. Mary's mind raced. 1,000 thoughts and strategies spiraled as she anticipated rejection. But standing there, she sensed a shifting dynamic. For all the tension that had existed, a flicker of intrigue danced in Claire's eyes. "Interesting proposition," Claire replied slowly, a faint smile breaking the veneer of her typical seriousness. "But let's be clear. This will require both of us to push boundaries. Are you ready for that?" The weight of responsibility settled upon Mary. She found herself confronting not just the prospect of collaboration, but her own fears of inadequacy. Could she truly match Claire's formidable vision? The retrospective doubts flicked like flames inside her, yet she understood that this was part of the transformation she sought. "Yes," Mary affirmed, meeting Claire's gaze with newfound determination. "But I also think we need to redefine our approaches. Instead of competing, we can inspire each other." Claire's expression softened momentarily. "I'll hold you to that," she replied. And in that exchange, something shifted, an acknowledgement that they were moving beyond rivalry. As the children continued their delightful chatter, Mary felt emboldened, as if she had claimed a piece of her own identity back. Yet lurking beneath the surface were unexamined layers of tension, a sense of having to prove herself, a looming fear of failing to meet expectations, and a gnawing curiosity about the limits of her own capabilities. What awaited her in this new partnership was unknown territory, ripe with potential conflict and growth. As she glanced at Claire, a flurry of questions rushed through her mind. Was she prepared to confront the challenges of collaborative creativity? What if their visions didn't align? Could she hold her ground when disagreements arose? Mary's heart raced with excitement, tempered by trepidation. As the sun began its descent, casting soft shadows across the kitchen, she realized that she was no longer simply teaching cooking. She was preparing a recipe for her own reinvention. In that charged atmosphere, a new possibility loomed on the horizon, promising both the thrill of uncharted paths and the tension of impending trials with Claire. Would their partnership serve as a catalyst for creativity, or would it fracture under the weight of expectations? The question hung heavy, urging Mary to confront the personal battles that lay ahead, battles that would ultimately test not just her professional resolve, but well beyond. The time to redefine her identity was now, and she could only hope the outcome wouldn't lead to ruin, but rather a blossoming realization of her true potential. The air hummed with an energy Mary had not felt in years, a mixture of hope and apprehension swirling through her like the vibrant colors of the smoothies the children sipped from their plastic cups. She turned her focus back to the task at hand, cultivating an atmosphere that encouraged creativity and connection. Ideas spun through her mind, each one tugging at her sense of responsibility. As she set up for the next lesson, she sifted through the ingredients she had laid out, thinking critically about how to weave their culinary experience into a broader life lesson. This was more than just cooking, it was a path to self-discovery. Marie envisioned a vibrant lesson utilizing the concept of balance, not just in flavor combinations, but in life. "Today," she announced, her voice brimming with the confidence she was slowly uncovering, "we're going to explore the balance between sweet, savory, and tangy, much like how we find balance in our own lives." The children's eyes widened, eager to embrace this insight. Yet, beneath her crafted enthusiasm, Mary felt the weight of expectation settling heavily on her shoulders. This partnership with Claire loomed in the back of her mind, a looming specter of potential failure that she could not shake off. What if the children saw her struggle? What if Claire considered her ideas lacking? Lost momentarily in her thoughts, a child's laughter jolted her back. That lightness was infectious, a stark contrast to the gravity of her internal dialogue. As they progressed through the lesson, Mary felt herself loosening up, experimenting with how she engaged them. Rather than simply instructing, she began to ask them questions. How does this taste like something we feel? What about the texture? Do you think it reminds you of any experiences? Their responses varied, each child providing a glimpse into their own world and perceptions. In those formative moments, Mary felt a connection forming, not just to the children, but to herself. She was facilitating more than a cooking lesson. She was fostering an environment where creativity could thrive. Yet as class wrapped up and the children bounced off to recess, the gnawing need to impress Claire resurfaced. Would their collaboration enhance these moments, or would it stifle her burgeoning realization of self? This partnership could either bolster her confidence or expose her insecurities. An unexpected wave of anxiety washed over her. Mary took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a brief moment before looking at Claire, who had been quietly observing the class from a distance. There was a steadiness to Claire that Mary found both appealing and intimidating. It wasn't just her experience, but the way Claire had an innate understanding of how to push creative boundaries. "Claire," Mary began, pacing forward, determined not to shy away. "Can we talk about how we can leverage the children's responses in our next session? I think their voices will help shape what we do. What do you think?" Claire raised her brow thoughtfully, her gaze piercing through Mary. The silence stretched, amplifying Mary's nerves. Just as she was about to retreat back into doubt, Claire's lips curled into a small, approving smile. "I like how you're thinking. The kids definitely have a lot to contribute, and it shows you're starting to trust your instincts. But we need to keep structured boundaries. We can inspire each other, just as you said." The acknowledgement sparked something in Mary, a flicker of confidence igniting within her. "Balanced," she reiterated, "like our cooking lesson." "No, Mary, it's not just balance, it's synergy." Claire's eyes lit up with a newfound intensity. "Our synergy. Together, we'll create something greater than the sum of its parts." That flicker turned into a flame, overwhelming any remnants of doubt. However, with clarity came new questions. What would it mean to build a synergy with someone as driven as Claire? And how could she maintain her individuality in a potentially dominant partnership? As the day drew to a close, Mary's thoughts danced with anticipation and anxiety, their interplay reminding her of the delicate dance she had begun in the kitchen. She now saw the potential for growth, not just for the children, but for herself within this collaboration. However, she couldn't ignore the looming specter of ambition and competitiveness within Claire. Would she be able to hold her ground when the creative tension peaked? Mary felt the stakes rising. This was no longer merely about food. It was about forging her own identity in both their eyes and, in turn, understanding the very nature of creative collaboration. The moment of truth was approaching, and the air crackled with possibilities. The question lingered as she prepared for their next meeting. What sacrifices would she have to make to thrive, and at what cost would her newfound identity come? The next morning, Mary woke with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The air was thick with possibility, and as the sunlight filtered through her kitchen window, it ignited a sense of purpose deep inside her. Today was the day they would dive headfirst into collaborating with the children, and she was determined to approach it not just as a facilitator, but as an equal partner alongside Claire. She moved through her morning routines with newfound intention, focusing on the decisions she made from breakfast to getting ready. Each moment felt like a stepping stone towards establishing her role within this partnership, and her mind raced with strategies on how to assert her vision while maintaining the balance her lesson had emphasized. With confidence, she resolved to firmly assert her thoughts, creating a dynamic that harmonized both their styles. Arriving early at the venue, Mary couldn't shake the fluttering anxiety in her stomach. The nervous energy she initially felt began to evolve into a sharpened sense of awareness. As she set up the cooking area, arranging the ingredients and utensils with purpose, she mentally rehearsed the discussions with Claire, envisioning scenarios where her ideas could shine through. When Claire arrived, Mary greeted her with an unexpected enthusiasm born from clarity. "Claire, I was thinking we might begin today's session by inviting the kids to share their culinary experiences first. They should be our guide." Claire nodded, her face betraying a hint of surprise. "That's a great angle, Mary. I hadn't considered leading with their voices. It's a refreshing perspective." A thrill of validation surged through Mary. They dove into planning as the children arrived, and soon enough the room brimmed with their eager chatter. As she encouraged their storytelling, Mary noticed Claire stepping back, allowing Mary to foster the space. This was the synergy that Claire had spoken about, an unspoken nod to embracing each other's strengths. But even amidst the blissful chaos of creativity, seeds of doubt began to sprout. As each child spoke, Mary sensed Claire's gaze, calculating and observant, dissecting every angle of the lesson. Would her contributions still be valued after today? Would this success be enough to keep Claire from seeking control? Realizing that every moment counted, Mary forged ahead, guiding the children through clever activities inspired by their stories. They concocted banana pancakes inspired by a child's vacation memory and created a savory dip that echoed another's recollections of family gatherings. Each step felt like a dance, testing her limits but also pushing her to innovate. As laughter and joy filled the room, Mary felt herself loosening. This was her creative outlet, a platform to express not only culinary skills but her evolving self. But as Claire began to weave her expertise into the activities, Mary felt tension knotting in her stomach. Claire's suggestions, while brilliant, had a tendency to pull focus back to her own preferences. Was that the price of working together, or was it a sign that Mary was losing her footing? Between the dynamic exchanges, a moment arose that crystallized the growing tension. One of the children had concocted an idea for a recipe combining fruits that Mary knew were not only unusual, but also challenging in terms of taste. She hesitated, wondering how to share her concerns without pushing against Claire in front of the children. Taking a breath, she decided this was the moment to confront her fears. "Claire," she said, steadier than she felt, "what if we allow the kids to tweak the recipe? They may surprise us with something even more unique. That could be our takeaway today, a lesson on culinary creativity." Claire looked momentarily taken aback, and in that instant before she responded, Mary saw an opportunity to stand her ground, reassert her voice, and demonstrate the confidence she had been cultivating. The atmosphere shifted, and Mary knew she was at a precipice. It was now or never. Would she navigate the path toward collaborative strength, or would the fear of confrontation cause her to withdraw? Amidst the flurry of ideas and culinary chaos, the question loomed in her mind. How could she forge a partnership that enhanced her growth while staying true to her emerging self? The room buzzed with creative intensity. The children eagerly awaited her guidance, but Mary sensed the pulse of creativity and conflict thrumming between her and Claire. Today would be a defining moment, not just for the lesson, but for how her professional identity would evolve in this partnership. And as she prepared to articulate her thoughts, Mary didn't just seek approval. She sought to carve her own path. With conviction, she took a deep breath, ready to speak her truth. The vibrant colors of the fruits glimmered under the kitchen lights, mirroring the excitement coursing through the room. As Mary surveyed the children bustling about, her mind steeled itself for the ever-looming confrontation with Claire. This moment was more than lesson planning. It was her opportunity to assert her newfound identity, to stand not just beside her colleague, but shoulder to shoulder, as equals driving a shared vision. "All right, everyone," Mary called, drawing the kids' attention. Today we're going to create a culinary masterpiece, a dish that reflects not only our tastes, but our unique experiences. The enthusiasm rippled through the room, and as she continued, she felt the tension melt away. With each suggestion from the children, Mary became emboldened. Who thinks we should try blending our favorite styles, your childhood favorites and ours, to celebrate every flavor? Hearing the children's voices ignite with ideas was exhilarating. Yet just as the energy soared, a familiar texture of nerves gripped Mary when Claire interjected with skepticism, prioritizing her blend over the creative chaos Mary aimed to cultivate. The urge to retreat ignited within her, but she pushed forward, determined to hold her ground. "Claire, what if we let the kids truly guide us?" Mary proposed, sensing that she would need to assert her vision if this dynamic was to flourish. It's vital that they feel empowered through this process. Let's celebrate their creativity without strict guidelines. To her surprise, Claire softened, not dismissing her idea, but instead contemplating the possibilities, the challenge of melding their styles. Interesting perspective, she mused. Allowing them creative freedom could spark unexpected results. Mary felt a flush of victory. Perhaps this synergy could thrive, provided it was nurtured with shared respect. The idea of balancing her creativity with Claire's expertise transformed what could have been an arduous discussion into a dance of collaboration. As the children worked together, laughter ensued, filling the kitchen with delightful chaos. Each recipe evolved, flavors melding, while Mary encouraged the kids to trust their instincts. The energy of creation painted confidence on her heart as she realized this was about reciprocated trust. Halfway through the session, one child raised their hand, a mix of trepidation and eagerness glimmering in their eyes. "Miss Mary, can we add a weird fruit to our smoothies? Like durian?" Mary paused, feeling the heaviness of uncertainty wash over her. But then she saw an opportunity. "Absolutely. Let's embrace our adventurous side. Who's willing to experiment?" Her eyes darted over to Claire, who watched intently, arms uncrossed, an unexpected index of approval flashing across her face. It was an encouraging sign, evidence that Mary was not just fighting for her place, but carving out space for collaborative empowerment. "Okay, let's make it a challenge," Mary said, a new sense of charge jolting through her. "We'll each make a smoothie with our chosen fruits and have a taste test. Let's celebrate our differences and strengths." As the challenges unfolded, Mary felt buoyed by the excitement around her. The synergy with Claire was evolving into something that didn't drown her own contributions, but allowed them to flourish. For the first time, she sensed an exhilarating balance between leadership and collaboration. With the last flavors blending together and the children giggling at the experimentation, Mary reveled in the moment. This wasn't merely about food. It was a celebration of forging her own path where she felt seen, heard, and esteemed, not just as a grandmother, but as a visionary in her own right. The final taste testing was met with giggles and delighted squeals as each child presented their creation. And as they cheerfully debated the quirks of their smoothies, Mary caught Claire's eye. There it was, an unspoken understanding blossoming between them that neither had expected. As the session wrapped up and the laughter resonated through the kitchen, Mary's heart brimmed with satisfaction. She had proven not just her point, but her place. She felt confident and competent, recognized not only for her culinary aspirations, but as an integral part of this dynamic partnership. "Claire," she said earnestly as they organized the space, "thank you for being open. I didn't expect us to find such harmony." Claire, sporting a genuine smile, nodded. "You've changed the narrative of our partnership, Mary. I think we both learned from today." It felt like triumph, an undeniable achievement she'd worked toward not just for herself, but for her family legacy. She was now firmly positioned, having moved beyond merely reviving her relationship with the kitchen, but seized ownership of her journey, reshaping her role as a beacon of inspiration for her family. Mary walked to the window, the world outside glimmering with sunlight, a metaphor for her own resurgence. The shadows of doubt receded, replaced by a bright vista of opportunity. With renewed confidence and clarity, she stood ready to embrace every challenge ahead, committed to nurturing this union of creativity, standing tall at the center of her own transformation. In that moment she realized, the kitchen was no longer just a venue for meals. It was her stage, her sanctuary, the very tableau where her newly defined self truly flourished. Now was the moment to take this transformation beyond recipes and into the tapestry of her life. Would she cherish this path she had forged and inspire others to explore their own potential? Or would she find herself confined within that familiar space once again? The answer remained unwritten, but the resolve to embrace each new chapter, boldly and unapologetically, was surging within her soul. And now is your moment too. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that might just inspire your very own journey of transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. The support makes all the difference in sharing these profound narratives. Comment below with your reactions and thoughts about Mary's journey. Did you identify with her struggles? What part of her story resonated with you? Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, because who doesn't deserve a little extra encouragement on their path to empowerment? After all, we all have our own journeys to take. Don't wait even one more second to share.